Hey everyone, welcome back to Roots, Reefs, and Reactions. I'm Kyle. This is the second episode in my new mini-series on my first reef tank. This is based around a Nano Reef tank with strong focus on softies and LPS. Eventually down the line, I want to try some SPS, but really just documenting the first steps into this hobby for me. I have a pretty significant background in freshwater tanks, and you can see a couple videos on my channel about the Wallstead method tanks, and there should be more coming along those lines. But this series is entirely for my reef tank. As you can see behind me, this is the original tank that I had and decided to make the move to a slightly bigger tank. I know all the memes and everything about you always wanting more volume. I don't see myself going above maybe 15, 20, or 25 gallons. Anything larger than that is just a little too large for me. I like those small scapes where you really dial in all the specific pieces. But this one, which is about 7 gallons with everything added, 5 gallons, is just too small. I was too limited on it. And for my first tank, I didn't want that. I don't know exactly what I'm doing yet, exactly what I'm looking for. So I wanted something slightly bigger than that. So I ended up moving to the Innovative Marine Nuvo 15. This is a 15-inch by 15-inch tank. Got off of Facebook Marketplace for pretty cheap. But you can also find these on the Innovative Marine website and some other sites as open box for quite cheap. I've seen them around 80 or 90 bucks. But on Facebook Marketplace, you can get some of the bells and whistles for sub $100, and I highly recommend that if you're looking for a new tank. As I'm still trying to perfect this new channel of mine, you'll see that there's a couple of videos in here that I should have taken, or rather the lack of videos that I should have taken with the additions of new corals and a new fish that I got, and some new snails and invertebrates. So I apologize for that ahead of time. With that, I should have some more videos coming out soon about just basic cleaning of the tank, both for information and just for relaxation like I've shown before in the Wallstead tank, and starting to work on some videos that are a lot more educational and more fun, kind of like 10 best Nano Reef and Nano freshwater tank species like invertebrates and fish that you can add to them, the type of reviews that I've put out for specific filtration and wave makers, and just a little more informative, a little more relaxed type of videos. But that's enough screen time for me. Let's move on over to the tanks, walking through the process of this transfer, and I have a time lapse in there showing that went pretty smoothly. Let's get right into it. So the first dips that I did for these corals are actually with Reef Dip by Seachem, but eventually I moved on from this. And here are the very first corals we actually got. So we have a pulsing xenia and alveopora. Those are both mine, and my wife got the Duncan. And the dips went completely fine for these except for the xenia. And you'll see me placing in here the alveopora. I know this is a pretty tough beginner coral, but it just blew me away seeing the colors online. And these are from Top Shelf Aquatics. Really high quality corals, highly recommend them. We've gotten 2 batches from them already. Place this in the sand because I know it likes a little bit less light and a little less flow. So this corner should do quite well. And the pulsing xenia I actually tried to place on top of this rock here. Looking back, there's a couple mistakes here. 1, shouldn't have dipped it. I know there's issues with dipping xenia. And 2, it was definitely a little too high for the light and flow that it should have been getting. But added both of those to the tank. Those are the very first corals. This is about 2 months ago now, and was really excited for the start of my coral keeping. As you can see, there's no longer any pulsing xenia, and I got a couple new corals. Here's the alveopora, looking beautiful under the light. I ended up getting a toadstool leather and a hammer coral for pretty cheap at a local fish store, and picked up at that time a hermit crab and a couple of snails for the cleanup crew. I also picked up this wonderful guy that you've probably seen on my shorts. His name is Alan. He is a Yasha goby and came with his best friend, who was already paired at the time, pistol shrimp, and his name is Boomer. These guys, if you don't have one, are just fantastic. They play so much, almost it looks like. Boomer just sits down in his hole, moves rocks all day while Alan keeps watch. When I feed them, if Boomer doesn't come out for some snacks, Alan will grab him food and spit it down in the cave for him. It seems like every night they build more, and it's pretty funny to watch because during the day they have the hole wide open and they come in and out there constantly looking for food. But at night they basically just close the door and move rocks into the way so that you can't see them and they're safe at night. It's really cool to watch. Here's just an image of the tank with the wave maker in there, and it was just too small for everything. I have 3 corals in there, and I already felt like I was gonna start to lose room really rapidly, especially when they started to grow in. So at the time I decided to move all the corals and the rocks and sand into the new tank and kind of basically just start fresh again. Here's a time lapse of me doing that. I had already moved all the sand and all the rocks over. At the time I was really worried because I couldn't find Boomer, and I was just praying that he was stuck on the rock that I originally put in there on the right hand side you see now. And luckily after a couple of hours he crawled out of there. Him and Alan again made the home onto that right side rock immediately. I was really relieved. And here they are, settled in under the same exact rock as last time. And luckily for me, in the nano tank it's a little bit easier, but lucky for me they put up shop right up front, so they're the first things that you see inside of the tank. And after the moving in, Boomer went straight to making this home his. He just moves rocks all day long, both the small stuff and the large stuff. Because of the bigger tank, I needed some more sand because we had used all the sand previously. So I actually got some larger grain sand here because I think they would enjoy it a little more. There's some bigger pebbles and stones that are up front, and you just see over time and so these images that all of them move. That's not from me, that's him picking them up, creating a different entrance for the rock. And again, Alan just sits there and watches all day long. As soon as there seems like there's any issue, Alan will brush up against Boomer, and Boomer will just go flying back into the hole, and Alan will keep watch. And on the left hand side, again, the Alveopora, I end up sticking that onto this rock that I had in the sump of my previous tank, and it seemed to be doing fine there at the beginning, but again, this is kind of a moving piece situation, and you'll see after a little while that it ends up moving back towards the gravel a little bit more off the rock. Here's a short clip. You can see Alan, how much work he puts in. I mean, look at this. It's a giant pebble compared to him, and he just brings it right down, pretending like maybe he's got a new couch or something. And the hermit crab came right over, and all the snails, I was able to pick them all out beforehand. And again, no acclimation issues, just moved all the sand and rocks over with the corals attached to them still, and then added in the salt water that was from the previous tank, and then brought new salt water up to temperature, checked it for salinity, and added this to this tank, and then acclimated the fish and brought them in as well. And after coming out from underneath the rock, all of them were super happy right away, and I was super pleased with this. I knew it was kind of a big move and kind of put myself into an awkward position with having to change tanks and go back on what I originally had. But the Nuvo 15 from Innovative Marine is just a beautiful tank. We already had one and just wanted to get another one, and super glad that I did. But because of a bigger tank, of course, ran into the issue of having to get more corals, but I was extremely happy to do that anyways. So shortly after this, went to the local fish stores and picked up a couple new items for this tank. First one that I got was this beautiful Gorgonian, one of my bucket list corals. I know it's kind of common, but not really common, and just the way that it moves and the height that it adds to the tank, I think it just adds a lot, because with a lot of freshwater tanks, you can get really nice height, especially in the background plants, but in reef tanks, it's a little bit more difficult unless you have a tank for a long time. You can get bird's nest or some of those SPS. But this guy does it pretty quickly, and he branches out super nicely. So here's just a tank shot with a Gorgonian sitting in the back left, and it was also nice because this Gorgonian came with coralline algae on its frag, and I can already see some of that start to spread. The Alveopora, again up front, will move again, but started to look a little bit happier inside this tank, and I know it's a little bit more finicky, but luckily so far it's been doing pretty well. And that's the hermit crab. Trying to find out a name for him, so if you think of any cute names, let me know down in the comments. Toadstool leather, took a little bit to acclimate ever since I got it in between moving tanks, but it's definitely opened up fully now, and I can't wait for it to get bigger. Again, the Gorgonian, just an awesome looking coral. Is just super interesting, and the polyps on it are just fun to watch. Also have this frog spawn. Unfortunately, when I was trying to place it originally, I cracked a little bit of the base. So I had to super glue that together, and it's still doing well now. I heard they're pretty resilient. Luckily they are. And it seems like he's starting to grow more now. Again, had to add some new sand and a couple new rock pieces. So you can see there's start to be some outbreak with diatoms, but these are starting to slow down now. Also started to get a decent amount of algae on the rocks, you can see with a green tint, but I'm embracing it and I actually kind of like it. I feel like it adds more character to the tank. Starting to get a little more green algae now and a little bit more hair algae, but again, they're manageable, and I think it adds more to the tank. And you can see that I actually shifted the Alveopora to the left hand side of the tank now, the way that the wave maker was set up. I wanted a little bit less flow on it, medium to low flow. So I pushed him off into the corner, and he's kind of mostly been in that spot for now, and he's starting to open up a lot more. And same with the frog spawn. I felt like over on the right hand side of the tank, it was getting blasted a little too much by the wave maker. So I moved him over to the left hand side so that he could also be away from the leather coral. So when he does grow up, he doesn't sting it as much. And he's been in this spot for a little bit, and he's definitely more extended than he was before. So he's definitely getting hit with too much water. Again, the alveopora, but on the rocks you can start to see there's little mixes of algae popping up. A little bit of diatoms, a little bit of green algae, but again, nothing too bad, and the uglies haven't been terrible yet. And you can see in the background there's a couple spots of purple coming up from the coralline from the Gorgonian frag. I'll get to that in a minute as well. So here you can see the leather really opened up. You can see a couple of the other snails that I've gotten. And in the top middle, you can actually see that the hermit crab changed shells. I popped a couple new ones in there. His other one was pretty beaten up. And after a couple of days of switching back and forth, he settled on this shell that's pretty cool looking. It's white with black spikes all over it. And Alan is on the right-hand side of the rock. Him and Boomer open up an entrance over there. I know they typically open up a couple different entrances, but 99% of the time they actually come out of the front of the rock. So I wanted to throw a still image in here real quick just because there's a couple new corals, and I'll try to highlight them. So on the top right, we have the new addition. I don't quite know the name of this coral. I think it's maybe Celastria or Cephastria. If you know, please let me know in the comments, because this is a mystery frag and they didn't actually tell us what it was. In the top middle, we have another frag that came along with our recent order, and this is a red and green porite, or maybe it's called a Christmas tree porite. This is an SPS, still alive for now, surprisingly, and the polyps look pretty good. I think it might need a little bit more flow in the newer system that I have set up, but again, not bad yet. And then on the bottom left, I moved a bunch of stuff around, so you see the alveopora is a little bit lower to the ground. It's not on as big as a rock. And then to the right of that, we have a new rock flower anemone that I picked up, again from Top Shelf Aquatics. And then we have a mushroom picked up from the local fish store. And on the right hand side, a new Duncan. This is, I believe, a mint green Duncan, but don't quote me on that, I'll put it on the screen. Is resting in that spot and really appreciates the flow, it seems like. And then this is the last big move that I had. You can see that I am attaching a rock to the wall because I just need a little bit more rock space. I want a little bit more height in it. My inner aquascape is starting to come out, and just use glue and attach it to the back wall. And you can see that other mystery frag attached it to the back wall as well to see if it'll grow. So this is what it looks like up front. A couple things moved around, pushed some stuff more towards the back. Took a couple hours for everything to become happy again, but overall super happy with how this turned out. The rock on the top right that I attached to the wall was pretty steady, surprisingly steady on that, and I tried to pull on it a decent amount and it didn't seem like it was going to come off. And I just imagine this being a place for higher flow, higher light corals, and just gives a new door into adding some texture to this tank. And for that spot, I ended up taking a red bubble tip anemone that I got at a local fish store. And here's just time lapse of him starting to puff up a little bit. And you might get little glimpses here and there of my new friend as well. And here he is. And it's funny, he goes back and forth between the leather coral and the red bubble tip anemone. Here you can see a little bit better. So this is Rose, my, I believe, pink skunk clownfish. It was adorable, came from the same tank that the bubble tip anemone came from, so he was already really good at being hosted. Him and Alan get along super well, never seen them fighting or territorial, and super happy with this purchase. And here's the most updated shot of my Nano Reef tank at just under 2 months old. I feel like everything has gone pretty well so far. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. If you'd like the video, leave a like. Stay tuned for more episodes, so subscribe if you want to see the next ones, and keep curious.